Working. Hold on. Live stream's about to begin. We've got a cool guest. He's a perfumer. He's going to tell us secrets of the perfume world, how he creates his fragrances. He has his own business for more than 7 years, and he's also worked with some of the most expensive ingredients and fragrance companies in the world. So please stand by as we collect some of you, and then we're going to go live in just a moment. The clock
We head for the sky, it's alright. Our wings wouldn't fly, it's alright. If we are crashing down again, pieces of love, it's alright. Scattered in mud, it's alright. You're giving me a lie again. And tell me what you want, this time I won't take it to the heart, 'cause I know we won't make it out. I've heard it all before. Yeah, tell me what you want, let me hear that I'm the only one. You know that we won't make it out. We've heard it all before. It's alright. It's alright. It's alright. It's alright. It's alright, so let's move on. 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 It's alright, so let's move on.
There you go. Hello, best friends. This is Mark Sage. Can you hear me, Mark?
Yes.
Okay. Mark is a perfumer, and he has clandestine labs in, is it Brooklyn?
Bronx.
Bronx. Okay.
No.
So we
Formerly
just want to
Manhattan.
know real quick, do you make them in the Bronx?
Yes. So far, I'm still in the prototyping stage, basically. Selling very little, still perfecting formulas, and I tend to take a long time creating things and making sure they're right before I launch them. And basically, the sticking point right now is just finding places that will manufacture them in small batches. And I found a place now that will do the bottling for me, handle the alcohol.
Okay. Do you write them like by hand, or do you?
No, I actually, because I'm a self-taught perfumer, I kind of learned the ass backward way, I guess, which gives me a unique working process. I think. Probably. I don't write out formulas. I basically start out with usually a chord composed in my hand because I was composing in skin, and then I start fleshing it out from there in the bottle directly, recording music.
And where do you make them? Right there behind you? Is that your lab?
Yeah, my skill behind me here.
Oh, that
Over
is,
here.
that is pretty cool.
And I'll show you, if you're interested, I'll show you the overview of the, these are working bottles of materials.
Yeah, tell us all about it. And tell us, like, do you have any like real sticky substances like tar gum or anything like that? Because some of those resins can be like that, correct?
Oh yeah, frankincense resin is really a difficult one to work with. Basically, a lot of these things come the consistency of like pine sap, and you have to handle them and get them dissolved in something.
And some are liquids, like I'm not sure if I pronounce this right. Acetate, is that? I'm not a chemist by any means.
Yeah.
Acetate makes a like a pear note, almost like a citrus note to calm spicy.
Oh, that's like hexyl acetate. There's a whole series of acetates.
Okay.
Acetate's a functional group.
Okay.
Which means basically it's a unit that will combine another unit to make estrogen.
Now, quickly, do you know the difference? You have these fragrances that are like made in different countries overseas that replicate the high-end fragrances. They use chemicals to replicate fragrances that use natural ingredients. Is that fair to say?
I wouldn't say that's necessarily true. One major difference, or major difficulty in trying to knock off the fragrance is that in gas chromatography, you detect individual chemicals. Some of those chemicals are signatures of natural products that you can identify. But it kind of gives you a vague snapshot of the chemical makeup of the formula. And then uh, the real factor probably is just the difficulty in identifying some of the specific naturals and the expense of some of the naturals that are not used in knockoffs, basically.
Okay. Oh, your voice is coming in and out. I don't know if there's a.
Oh yeah. So yeah, I'm hearing it strange because there's an echo that I'm hearing.
Hmm. Okay. Sometimes
Anyway,
I.
I'm trying to ignore it.
Oh, okay. I've got the wrong mic. I got two microphones on. I'm sorry. Hi. That's better. Is that better?
Let's see. Oh yeah, yeah. Now I can't hear myself. That's great.
Great. I'm so
Huge
sorry.
relief.
Okay. So next question is the ingredients that we were talking about. Natural ingredients cost more than getting, say, chemical ingredients, or like.
It really is a wide range of prices for both naturals and artificial chemicals. People think that artificials are somehow bad or cheap. I started out with that, view myself when I first got into perfumery, and I thought I was going to do all natural fragrance, partly for health benefits and safety and quality. And it just turned out to be, as I learned more, I was actually, I realized I was completely wrong. Some of the most dangerous, quote unquote, chemicals that are found in fragrances are actually of natural origin and come from the natural ingredients that are used in them. Uh, some of the chemicals that are found in natural extracts are basically increasingly banned or restricted because they haven't gone through the development process that artificial chemicals have that includes safety testing. They've just been kind of grandfathered in, and
Oh, I see. That's why some of their fragrances are so powerful that they're not they're not.
can be. I mean, there's some very powerful artificial chemicals. A lot of the artificial chemicals are actually found in nature. Basically, what I've discovered is there's a huge overlap. A lot of the heavier chemicals that are found naturally, like in patchouli and sandalwood, are basically very difficult to synthesize, and so they're either only available from natural sources or that's the cheapest source of them actually. Um, so with naturals, there's anything from orange oil, which is incredibly cheap. I mean, you can get orange oil for like $20 a kilo or something if you look for it. All the way up to orris root, absolute, and oud oils, which are just unbelievably precious, more expensive than gold.
So, what is the most expensive ingredient?
Almost certainly a rare oud, I would think, just because they are so rare and specific, and they take so long for the tree to actually produce them. Like a very high quality oud will be, the wood will be 50 years old, that it's been infected and gradually building up this resin inside, which then gets distilled and doesn't produce much oil. So it's just incredibly expensive. It's
And
very rare.
do you have to refrigerate any of these?
Yeah, I generally refrigerate all my citrus oils because they tend to go rancid. They oxidize over time and lose their freshness. I tend to refrigerate aldehydes, which is probably part of the reason that citrus oils go bad is they contain aldehydes, which are kind of unstable chemicals. And I generally, I refrigerate as much of my inventory as I can, partly because I have room in my fridge. It just makes things last longer.
And then they always say that jasmines, are those expensive? Jasmine?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Jasmine rose oil is one of the most expensive natural products because its yield is so small. Basically, it takes thousands of rose petals to make any appreciable amount of the oil, and it's distilled. It takes a lot of effort to pick the fresh petals and there's just there's a lot involved.
Okay. Then how important is chemistry for to do on this? That's very important, no?
Well, yeah, it's funny. When I first got into it, I have a background in chemistry. I was a big nerd as a kid, and I had a chemistry lab in my basement, which was part of the origins of my brand name. Uh, at first, I thought, oh well, there's a market for fragrance, and I was an art photographer for a long time. At work, I was in charge of producing chemical formulas for toners and developers and things, and I'd had a lot of experience, basically developing chemical formulas. And I thought, oh, this is something that I could do that's creative and that I could eventually make into a business. And my chemistry knowledge will be really valuable. And as I got into it, learning it, I realized that it's actually a lot more like cooking, and that the sense of smell is really not as straightforward or intuitive as you would think, and it just doesn't really correspond very well to any of my experience in chemistry. But as I've gotten, I guess, more advanced and more interested in commercializing fragrances, I've realized and also as I've mentored someone who doesn't have a background in chemistry, I've realized it's just invaluable in terms of, for starters, just remembering the chemical names and having some kind of reference as to what, hexyl is as opposed to benzyl acetate. What do you expect their evaporation rates to be and things like that.
Yeah, chemistry was optional wherever I went to school, and I skipped it.
Yeah, I was actually the only person my advisor had heard of doing organic chemistry as a freshman.
So here
But
are some of the titles Mark Sage has created from Clandestine Labs. That's an underground fragrance company. And just quickly tell us what it smells like is a real quick summary. Certo.
Certo, that's Italian for sure or certain. It's I'd say a rich, a warm masculine with a bit of sweetness. It's leathery. It's got a lot of nutmeg quality. It's very complex, and it's actually an example of a fragrance that I don't think anyone could ever create writing it down, because it happened through 4 iterations where I created a first version, divided that in half, saved half, kept working on the half, modifying that, divided that in half again, and then so on. And I ended up with something that was really, completely different than what I'd started with. But it took quite a process to get to what I was kind of imagining in the first place.
And then we have these two. Film Noir, which was what? Your first?
That was probably my first successful one that I'm still producing.
And
Um,
Ashes?
which one? Oh,
Ashes.
Ashes, yes. So both of those actually were really, I guess, fairly early. Well, a lot of my fragrances actually I started fairly early on in the process. I had an idea, and then it took often 4 or 5 years to figure out and to get the materials that I needed and access to them that to allow me to finish them. I mean, I started out as a hobbyist at a time when there wasn't a huge range of materials available online, or through suppliers that would sell in small quantities to someone like me. And so, as I've gone on, I've kind of filled out, not only my knowledge but also the library of materials I use. So, Film Noir is a chypre with lavender, choy loban, vanilla theme. It's kind of powdery, but with a smoky, spicy undertone, and it's, I'd say, one of my top fragrances that I've ever made. It smells great on men and women. I just love it. It's
Very well rounded. Compared to Ashes, is more smoky, right?
Yeah, yeah. And Ashes actually started out as a smoky fragrance that I'd made that was completely different, and then I posted about it, and a friend of mine from high school said, "Oh, that sounds lovely. I can imagine." And I knew what she was thinking of, and it wasn't what I'd made. So I started over again, trying to make something that was kind of had the quality of earthiness and lightness of actual clean, dry fireplace ash. So it's not smoky anymore. It's just then as I started working on it, I kind of developed a theme of death and rebirth. I kind of had this vision of a forest clearing after a forest fire, the next season when the grass is starting to come up through the ashes, and life is regenerating out of the ashes.
And so Mark does have several more titles, and you can check them out at Clandestine Labs. Is that the full name?
Clandestine Laboratories.
Clandestine?
It's clandestinelaboratories.com, and it's a long title, and it was actually intentional to make it hard to find.
Yeah, it's underground, and the fragrances are phenomenal. Like above, I can't even
Thank you.
explain it. They're so decadent. And we're gonna just ask a few people are asking some questions, and I'll start from the top. Well, it says, "How are you doing today? What are your plans for the future?"
Well, this has been a long-term project, and I'm still in the late development stage. I'm figuring out packaging for my products. Just basically, I've historically sold to people that I know in real life, in person, and done product development and testing through them. I'm finally at a stage where I'm ready to launch, but with a few complications. One of them being that I lost my full-time job and I'm on unemployment. So that actually complicates running a business, especially a startup business, when I don't have a whole lot of resources. So I've been slowed down by that situation a little bit, and dealing with packaging and branding and stuff is not, I'm an artist. It's not really my thing. So I've been a little bit slow about it, figuring out how to ship things efficiently. And,
Maybe someone will see this stream and reach out to you.
Yeah, currently the best way to get a hold of me is just not, my website is not accepting orders, but if people want to, send me a direct message, I definitely encourage everyone to sign up for my mailing list. I'll be,
That's the next question. Papa Smurf says, "When can we buy some?"
You can buy some immediately, but you have to contact me directly.
Okay.
I'm leery about reopening my website because that has the potential to make me considered employed, and I just can't support myself from small scale fragrance. I'm a micro niche business at this point.
And then we have John Gregoria says, "Are you going to be attending Scent Explorer 2021? And if so, can you bring some product on hand? I'd love to check them." Have you heard of Scent Explorer?
I haven't. I've heard of a bunch of the. Where do you know where that is?
It's right down the street from you. I last time it was in New York that I can remember. I'm not 100% on that, but I'm pretty sure it was. Maybe it was. Sometimes they're in Italy. I'm not really too sure actually.
Yeah, I went to something similar to that. I would like to. I would like to be there at that point. We'll see.
Oh, this guy Hamza says, "Are there any tips to make colognes last longer? Like you're existing colognes, is there anything you could do to make them last longer? A tip?"
I assume that means in terms of wearing them. I would recommend spraying on fibers. Clothing, if it doesn't stain or if it's a dark item of clothing, or hair works really well. Hair is great for getting diffusion, sillage coming out behind you, and anything that's on your skin is going to evaporate much more rapidly because it's warm, and also because just the chemistry of skin versus hair fibers.
And then we have another question by him. He says, "Do these synthetic chemical colognes harmful for the lungs?" I think that's he.
Yeah. There are some classes of chemicals that I'm concerned about that aren't. It's funny, the regulatory stuff. There's a lot of fragrance safety regulation. I tend to disagree with people who think that the fragrance world is somehow dishonest and unhealthy and not transparent enough. It's very highly regulated. There is a class of musks basically, which is in everything, laundry detergent, human bodies also, and it tends to bioaccumulate, which makes me tend to shy away from using large quantities of it. But in general, I don't think, there's a lot of unjustified paranoia about fragrance that I think.
Sugar is bad for you. I mean,
yeah, totally. And I mean, you're not drinking these things. When you smell something that's strong, you're having a reaction that's mostly dependent on your nervous system. It's not, it may make you feel sick, but it may not actually be, toxic, right. Which is a strange thing about odor, smell.
Because clary sage has been known to reduce stresses and anxieties, things like.
Oh yeah. I mean, a lot of the chemicals, even the artificial chemicals that are used in fragrance, are actually, they have positive health benefits. Some of them, and like I said before, some of the more dangerous ones are natural and more difficult to wear. I'd say, like, if you've ever smelled pure clove oil or clove absolute, it's a very heavy, kind of sickening fragrance in concentration.
And that being said, also there's a whole group. Like when I went to California, I met females that were all into. And I tell them what I do for a living. They go, "Oh, you should really consider oils or naturals and this whole
Yeah.
little niche about everything organic and
N-
natural." Here and where I
Yeah.
live too, they're so affected by perfumes. Even my neighbors goes, "Oh no, I don't wear fragrances. I wear lotion or something."
Yeah, yeah, it's unfortunate. There's been kind of a proliferation, or almost like a cottage industry of websites that are promoting these, scares about chemical ingredients in fragrances and cosmetics. I can name a few, but I think people know what I'm talking about. And I see things like linalool listed, which is it's a chemical, but linalool is about 30 to 40% of natural lavender oil. So, people are like, oh, I could never have this, synthetic chemical in my fragrance, but then they wear, they wear lavender oil and linalool's in it. And linalool actually is, a lot of these chemicals are involved in plant defenses, and they protect against cancer or, bacteria, or they have, relaxing effects soothing effects on the nervous system. My take is, if it smells good, it's probably not going to kill you, or it would have killed, your ancestors, even if it wasn't around at the time.
Okay, real quick, got just a couple more here. John Gregorio just wants you to know that it was in New York that Scent Explorer. The next
Ah,
question is, would you ever think about making bespoke fragrance for people? What does that mean?
yes, I have. I've done that actually, and I'm wide open.
Oh,
Uh,
fragrance.
it's basically custom fragrance based on the client's specifications, and
Wow.
it
Okay.
simply works by interviewing someone about what kind of fragrances they like and what notes they want in it. What do you want to smell like?
Okay.
What's your personality? And then and it's there's a lot of different people doing variations on bespoke fragrance. There's stores where you can go in and have your own bespoke fragrance made on the spot, but those are done with bases,
Hmm.
and they're not it's not a true unique fragrance the way that an actual composed fragrance would be.
And before we close out, I have a question about chemistry for you. The note called ISO Super. If you were to explain that to someone who doesn't know anything about chemistry in the most layman's terms, is it possible to say that you start with that maybe as a piece of bread and then you stack the others on top as a sandwich is being made? Or is there
That's
a better analogy you could give? ISO Super is a
that's
modern note, right? It's a not modern ingredient.
Yeah, it's interesting. It was discovered in the '60s, I think, as ISO-E, and then it became ISO-E Super as they got better at manufacturing it. There's basically different isomers within it, and one of them in particular is the one you want to smell. And originally, the commercial product was like 4 or 5% that isomer, and ISO-E Super now is about 11%, and then there's other high-tech variants on it now that are up to something like 22%, that are much more powerful, and that also have kind of a smoother, more ambery quality, less woody. It's one of the building blocks of modern perfumery. So yeah, I mean the bread analogy is pretty good. Except for there's a lot of materials you can use as bread, and you can also use ISO-E Super as a modifier if you want to. So
Okay.
um, structuring fragrance is like a whole podcast in itself, I
Wow.
think.
Okay. And this guy, one more. His name is Chef Leo Sanchez. He's a very hardcore viewer of ours. He wants to know, what is your favorite niche or favorite designer fragrance?
Oh my God.
You know, probably most of you guys that I've met don't even know anything about fragrance brands and designer names and niche. Like you just create what you like. I've spoken to a few perfumers, but
Yeah, well, I was going to say my approach at first was to avoid learning anything about other niche fragrances, because I wanted to develop a unique style, and I was very influenced by essential oils early on. Since then, I've come to really have a lot of respect for some of the other perfumers out there who've created just these absolute masterpieces. Um, I think I really like Chanel's high end fragrances. Their
their exclusive line.
yeah. Coromandel is just amazing. It just it starts out as this kind of classic top note, old school top note, and then it just becomes richer and richer as it dries down. And I'd love to know how they do that. I think what other ones I really like.
Told me burrito. Do you like them?
Oh yes, I do like Byredo. I discovered them kind of recently at a niche fragrance event in New York, actually, and yeah, talked to the woman who was selling them, and she was actually studying perfumery, and we had a nice conversation. And yeah, they seemed very high quality and not too. I think there's a tendency to make things sometimes that are, edgy for the sake of being edgy, and at the expense of them being wearable. And I think, people really want something that, maybe it's unique, but at the end of the day, you're going to wear it and want to wear it again. And they seem, to be doing a good job of that. I think the brand Memo, which is
serious fragrance.
They have pretty amazing dry downs. I think, a lot of fragrances, fragrance companies seem to, for marketing reasons, spend a lot of time and money on the top note, making something that when you first smell it, you're going to want to buy it. But, base notes are different and difficult because often the materials don't smell great at first. They have to dry down first. But also there's a more limited number of materials, I'd say, that, that perform well, as base notes. And a lot of them are natural. So I was very impressed by the stuff I smelled by them. It's got really kind of great complexity and dry downs.
Well, Mark Sage, that's it. We're gonna say goodbye. All right, we're gonna finish it up and wrap it up.
It's a pleasure.
Okay, thank you very much for coming.